Good morning. Welcome to Hell's Waiting Room. What I want you to do is close your eyes and remember that it was just a few short months ago when we were looking at snow falling around us and we were trying to plug whatever holes in the building there were that made for a cold breeze on a colder day. Remind yourself that we will return once again to that, but for the time being, we're going to enjoy each other as we sweat and enjoy the fact that in New England, we get to experience this and we do not experience the kind of weather changes that make for such danger that people in our country have experienced over and over again this week between wildfires and tornadoes. So we welcome the weather. We begin our time this morning with our prelude, Awaken the Better Angels of Ourselves, Matt Johnson, pianist, and Jagannath Khalsa, violinist, on video. An update on Matt. Matt is now recovering at what is called Vidya Hospital, which is the old Meadows facility in Rochdale. Matt, when he was moved to that facility, contracted COVID. And so is recovering both from his heart operation and from that. I've been in regular contact with his family. We're hoping that in the next few days he will be able to be visited. We did send a large bouquet of flowers on behalf of the congregation and staff to brighten his room there and hope to give you more positive update in the days to come. You are also at this time invited to light a silent candle of joy or sorrow. These are the words of Steve Stock. We light our chalice this morning to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves towards the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. Beloved, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. My name is Aaron Payson, and I am honored to be one of the ministers of this congregation. We're glad that you've joined us this morning. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, and discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world. To begin, we acknowledge that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, live, and learn and worship on the sacred and the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. Large print hymnals and orders of service are located in the foyer, as well as hearing devices and pew cushions. For those who would find any of these helpful, please see one of our ushers or greeters to help locating any of these should you desire them. For those of you joining us online this morning, a very hearty welcome to you. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better as you're able, please do list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Zoom and Facebook, as well as being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel and our website, Worship Archive. We extend a very special welcome to newcomers this morning and invite you to fill out one of our pew cards that are found in front of you. You're welcome to drop that card in the offering plate or leave it in one of the boxes at the sanctuary door or as you leave Fellowship Hall. Following the service this morning, you're invited to join us for a time of fellowship. Our flowers this morning are in honor of the life and memory of Kiernan Spinazzola, whose life was honored here yesterday in a service of celebration. Kiernan died on May 11th following a vehicle accident. He is the twin brother of my daughter's best friend. And 4 years ago, we also hosted a service for his father, who died after a long chronic illness. So I am particularly mindful this morning of the Spinazzola family and what they continue to carry, and I'm particularly grateful to the members and friends of this congregation who surrounded and supported that family in an effort yesterday to make certain that we honored Kiernan in every possible way. Our opening words this morning are by Odette Fulbright Folsom. The days that come and carry away your spirit, your spark, bow down. Lay your head on the hard earth and let your brokenness join the death that is stirring there. Life rebels against death, takes the very dust of our bones and reweaves it into glory. You were made for life, and life does not intend to let you go. But rest, you can. Decay and falling away from ourselves are part of that process. If you need to fall apart, then do. For life will hold you in that too. Will teach you how to desiccate and blow away, and then will call you back from the four corners of the earth, and will renew you with the water of the tears of others who, like you, weep for all that has been lost. She will breathe back into you the breath that washes from the mouths of children laughing, from the lion's roar, from the exultation of trees. You will be reborn into the arms of beloveds, and together we will sing a new song. Would you please join together in our opening hymn this morning, number 338 in your gray hymnals, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. Please rise in body or in spirit.
I seek the spirit of a child, child who leads life naturally, the child who sings the world alive, greets the morning sun with glee. Children are real beyond all art. May I see joy's a gift to our heart. I seek the freedom of a child who loves instinctively, who lights our day with just a smile and flings the light on all we see. Children are real beyond all fears. May I see hope's a gift to our tears. I seek the wonder of a child who sees fully. Now clowns and cloud, now golden sun, imagination's true and free.
please be seated. I want to invite Robin Mitskovich to come forward and share our religious exploration moment.
Good morning, everybody. Nobody's like kind of low energy because of the heat or anything, are they? Today in religious exploration, we have Beckley Showalter leading it sounds really great. I bet it will be. A lesson on courage, physical courage. Our theme for this month is courage, and she's teaching kids ways to examine the way you can be courageous in the light of some things that may come up in your lives. Also, our coming of age graduates, yay, are meeting with me this morning to talk about their time going forward and what they'll be doing. So we're delighted to have them here. And parents of coming of age grads, we're meeting directly following the church in the lounge. So it is now time for our Change for Change collection. Any of you who have any change they'd like to pass on to our ministers' emergency funds, please raise your hand, and our lovely young people with baskets will come to collect. Thank you.
Testing one. Excellent. I'm going to leave this door open just so we have some airflow through the place, shall we? We're going to do something a little different for a reading this morning, and yes, I'm going to ask you to move. Oh my God, he's going to ask me to move. What I need is 17 people. So if you want to be part of this, raise your hand. Deb, right here. Tom, right here. Ewan, right here. Marilyn, right here. No. Ginny, right here. Beth, right here. And so how many we have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Peg and Kathy. 8, 9. Rachel and Lindsay. 10, 11. 12. 13, 14. I need 3 more. 15. You want to just stand right here? And I need 2 more. Come on. 16, 17. Excellent. So, in a line. Here we go. I'm going right here. So, this is a thing from my friend Gail Forsyth Vale. You represent the first generation of West African people who came into this world in slavery, coming in 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia. And you represent the children of these people born between 1625 and 1650, and you remain enslaved. You represent the children's children of those Jamestown slaves born between 1650 and 1675, and you remain enslaved. You represent the children's children of those Jamestown slaves born between 1675 and 1700, and many of your generation remain enslaved. And you represent the children's children of those Jamestown slaves born between 1700 and 1725. Many white people have come and taken land for their towns and cities. The cities and towns are doing well, but you remain enslaved. And you represent the children's children born between 1725 and 1750, the Indians who used to live in the area have been driven out to make way for expanding numbers of cities and towns in the British colonies. And you remain enslaved. You represent the children's children born between 1750 and 1775. These British colonies have begun a way of independence stating that all men are created equal. But you remain enslaved. And you represent the children's children born between 1775 and 1800. These British colonies are now a country, the United States of America, and many native peoples have lost their lands as the United States has become bigger and bigger. The cotton gin has been invented, meaning that the farmers can grow lots more cotton and make a lot more money. It takes lots of people to take care of the cotton. Many white people choose to get their help they need with the cotton crop by buying more slaves. Thousands more West African people kidnapped from their homes arrive in chains. And you remain enslaved. You represent the children's born between 1800 and 1825, the birth also of Unitarianism in this country. This country is twice as big as it was just a few years ago. Many white people are going west looking for more places to build towns and cities. The cloth mills in the north are hungry for cotton, so farmers in the south grow more and more, needing more and more slaves arrive, and you remain enslaved. You represent children born between 1825 and 1850. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 is pushing Indians from their land. Many Native Americans die or are slaughtered. In 1848, the United States took a huge piece of Mexico and now rules over its Spanish-speaking citizens. There are now groups of people writing and speaking against slavery. But you remain enslaved. You? You represent the children of the Jamestown slaves born between 1850 and 1875. The country has fought a civil war. The railroads have been built by Irish and Chinese workers. The Indian wars continue out west as native peoples are forced into small areas of land called reservations. Slavery has been officially outlawed. You are no longer a slave, but people in power are working hard to limit your rights. And you represent the children between 1875 and 1900. There are now laws limiting who can come to this country and who may not. The Supreme Court has declared that whites and people of color ought to be separated. You're no longer a slave, but the law says you have fewer rights and privileges than white people. You represent the children, born between 1900 and 1925. A world war has been fought in this time, and women are finally allowed to vote. You still live and work under laws that separate you from white people. You represent the children, born between 1925 and 1950. The country suffers a Great Depression. Many people lose their jobs and then fight in the Second World War. Just like the rest of society, people of color in the Army are kept separated from white people. Whole towns full of new homes are built after the war for returning soldiers. People of color are not allowed to live in those towns. You represent children born between 1950 and 1975. This is the time of the Civil Rights Movement and the Martin Luther King. At long last, the children of Jamestown slaves have achieved equality under the law. You represent the children born between 1975 and 2000. Children of those who fought for equality under the law. New forms of discrimination have replaced the old ones, including a war on drugs that targets young men and of color, and lack of opportunity and resources, especially for people of color who are poor. Because of generations of slavery and discrimination, people of color have a hard time getting ahead financially. And you represent the generation of today. Only the third to live in this country since slavery and segregation were outlawed. Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, but racial discrimination continues and you encounter it in your day-to-day living. It is up to your generation to retell the story of the past, to understand the struggle, to have the dreams about the future, and to call all of us to act to end racial injustice in all its forms. You are the child of the children's children. And that, beloved, is a significant part of our history. Thank you. We come to that time in our service when we are invited to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts, that which reflects our own values and what it is that we desire to achieve in the world, symbolic of our favor for what happens here in this congregation and its values and ministries and missions. So it is our habit each time that we come together for common worship to take up an offering in service to that mission and ministries. And this week, so many things reflect the good news of this place. The ongoing efforts of our garden team with a mammoth pile of chips out front, our friends that came together over pizza and sledgehammers to put up our tent so that we might have a place to be able to relax this summer and to give us some shade from the heat. A congregation that distributed food to over 50 families yesterday in our monthly food distribution. And the opportunity to continue to honor life well lived, if not tragically cut short, for those in our community that need a place to do those things. This is the good news of this place. So I invite you to reach into your own pocket this time, pull out your checkbook, write the check you've always wanted to write to this place. Our morning offering will now be received. come to that time in our service when we are given opportunity to pause and consider that which is deepest part of our minds, our hearts, and our hands. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this day to come forward and to form lines on either side of the sanctuary, to come and speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are so that those using our auditory enhancement devices might also participate in this important ritual, and then to light a candle of joy or sorrow if you desire. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
Good morning. I'm Deb Bonneau. I want to just give you a little background in the song that my husband David will be singing soon. How many years ago did they legalize gay marriage? Do you know? Anybody? No. Well, one night during that time, we actually married one of the first 6 couples. It was a while ago. He was a wonderful member of the church, Gary Chalmers. I taught with him for many years in Shrewsbury, and his partner Rich and their daughter Paige. This church was surrounded by news trucks and reporters. We were on our edge in case something dire happened during that time. I played Love Will Guide Us about 20 times because we had moments when we needed a lot of music. It was very exciting, and we were on TV. I could hear that song, Love Will Guide Us, in the background through the whole thing. It was really wonderful. So, Everything Possible, wonderful song. Listen to the words. And I'm going to dedicate this to my daughter, to my child Mo, and Mo's partner Audrey. Mo has recently relocated from San Francisco with their partner Audrey. They're living in Boston. I'm a little concerned about the change in environment from there to here. I've been told by people that they should just figure out where their safe spots are, and they've already promised me they have a good feel for where they are here. I still worry. They haven't made any friends, particularly here, except old ones when Mo used to live here. So keep them in your hearts. Thank you.
I'm Peg Gifford. Last week was a very fine and memorable one for our family. First of all, my son, who's had an ongoing relationship with melanoma, got a clean bill of health, for which we're very thankful. And a few days later, his number one daughter, Catherine, my first granddaughter, and her son welcomed their first child, a son, John, and my first great-grandchild.
There you go. Congratulations.
I'm Beth Posner-Waldron. First, I want to say it's always a joy when I see that David Bono's name is on the order of service for singing. So I'm up here to explain why my fingertips are red and my palms. This is not dried blood. This is henna, right, Mara? And so I've had the pleasure and honor and great fortune of volunteering to help support the settlement of the Nori family and Shabati, the female head of the household, after we were doing her free shopping at the food pantry on Friday. I had told my spouse Evans, I said, be prepared because we're going to need to, go in and have tea. But on the way, Shabati asked me, she said, when we go in to have tea, and she pointed to her red fingers, and she said, I'll do your fingers. Well, you don't say no to tea when you're in someone's house, especially if they're Afghan. And you're certainly not going to say no to having henna on your fingers, because that would be really rude. But I guess when I asked her how long it would last, and she said a week or two, and she said, and then I could come back and have it redone. And I said, we'll see.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Heffernan, and I have a heavy heart, I guess. Yesterday, I had the experience of, for the first time, getting a budget through town meeting at local government, which I will say is kind of a thing. But in our school budget in Shrewsbury, we added 8 additional staff to address the mental health needs of our young people. 17% of the kids in high school admit that anonymously would say that they have seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. And for 7th and 8th graders, 15%. And last night I was at an event where our community lost a young person a year and a half ago, and she should have been graduating in 2 weeks. And I had the opportunity to hear her dad talk, and their family has been really reaching out and talking about this issue and how much they didn't know what was going on. And as I drove in here, and of course hearing any parent go through that, it's incredibly emotional. And as I was driving here today, I was talking with my son about it and saying, this is a problem and we're trying to do something. And just as we're getting in the parking lot, he was quiet for a while, and I said, well, what are you thinking about? And I kind of expected him to say like the Celtics game or something not connected, but he said, I don't know that those people are what's gonna make it. I don't know that that's gonna really work. And I don't know how you know what's going on in someone's head. And I don't know what we're supposed to do, but I kind of know the kids aren't okay, and that makes me sad.
Hi, I'm Jenny Delgizzi. I just got stuck to the wall, but I'm off now. Some of you know my mom passed away in March, and on Sunday, last Sunday, well, a week ago today, I guess today is Sunday, I'm not there now, but some of us from this church went to do the Walk for the Homeless, and my mom was one of the original organizers of that event back 84. I think I walked in the first Walk for the Homeless when I was 12. So I was really happy to be able to, share her legacy and just be with that idea that I was doing something that my mom liked, But anyway, today the tears, they come. So.
On Zoom, we hear from Bernadette and Brian Nelson that they and Brian's mother have also contracted COVID, so our hearts and minds go to them for swift healing. Laura Lenahan writes, Mason and I continue to look for a new place to live once this lease is complete. Hopefully, I found one yesterday. Apologies for being so distant from church. The day-to-day can be quite overwhelming at times. Mason is doing great, and hopefully he'll see some more friends in the nursery, though he loves Lois. Don't we all? And David Showalter writes about the pleasure of seeing his 92-year-old father receive an honorary degree from Princeton University on Wednesday. It was delayed from 2020 commencement. The week ended sadly with the father in extreme discomfort from a hernia and bowel obstruction that required a trip to the ER and some emergency surgery. I was glad to have been there and be able to help him through it. Sister is now keeping him company in the hospital while his diet is carefully advanced. His recovery is on track, and we're hopeful that he can come home early this week and some care can be arranged. And Cheryl Lachey writes, Bruce and I are helping his parents celebrate their 70th wedding anniversary. Laura Lenahan writes, as a codicil to what she wrote earlier, they accepted my application. Mason and I have found a place. So. we do this up to date, you know, minute to minute kind of thing. Are there, okay. There we go. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of our inner and outermost being, we come grateful this day for the community that surrounds and supports us. In challenging times when we question which way is the way to go, we would lean on each other and remember that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. Mindful this day of all of those who are in need of healing, especially our youngest who continue to struggle with all manner of things that require attention. Might we continue to have the courage to question, what are you thinking? Let us also have the courage to remember that we are the legacy of a varied history, that we represents different strands in that history. And while we can find great gratitude for the generations that have come before, we would measure that gratitude with the kind of care that reminds us of the privilege received or denied in that process. We who continue to call forth our better selves and the better selves of those around us would continue to strive for more justice and healing, for an opportunity to continue to share, to expand, to feel, and to move. For all of this, all that has gone spoken and unspoken this day, we give great and abiding thanks. Amen, and blessed be. one of those moments when you want to look out and just say, you just heard the sermon, let's go eat. Let's begin by saying that we're living through a very dangerous time. Everyone in this room is in one way or another aware of that. We are in a revolutionary situation, no matter how unpopular that word has become in this country. The society in which we live is desperately menaced, not by Russians, but from within. To any citizen of this country who figures themselves as responsible, and particularly those who deal with the minds and hearts of young people, we must be prepared to go for broke. Or to put it another way, you must understand that in an attempt to correct so many generations of bad faith and cruelty, when it is operating not only in the classroom but in society, you will meet the most fantastic, the most brutal, and the most determined resistance. There is no point in pretending that this won't happen. This statement sounds eerily applicable to today. However, it is a sentiment that James Baldwin opens his Saturday Review article December 21st, 1963, then known as A Talk to Teachers. Baldwin begins his remarks to teachers by reflecting on the social nature of education, which he suggests is to civilize children. He notes a basic paradox. We are social animals, he admits, and we could not exist outside of the context of a society of some sort. A society, he writes, in turn depends on certain things which everyone within that society takes for granted. Now, the crucial paradox, he writes, which confronts us here is that the whole process of education occurs within a social framework and is designed to perpetuate the aims of society. The paradox, says Baldwin, of education is precisely this: that as one begins to become conscious, one begins to examine the society in which one is being educated. The purpose of education, finally, is to create in a person the ability to look at the world for themselves, to make their own decisions, to say to themselves, this is black or this is white, to decide for themselves whether there is a God in heaven or not, to ask them the questions of the universe and then learn to live with those questions is the way they achieve their own identity. But no society is really anxious to have this kind of person around. I love that. What societies really ideally want is a citizenry which will simply obey the rules of society. If a society succeeds in this, the society is about to perish. The obligation of anyone who thinks of themselves as responsible, says Baldwin, is to examine society and try to change it and to fight it at no matter what risk. This is the only hope that society has. This is the only way societies change. He goes on in that article from 1963 to describe what he calls the schizophrenic nature of education for black children in America, where he writes, on the one hand, the child is born in the shadow of the stars and stripes, is assured it represents a nation which has never lost a war. The child pledges allegiance to the flag which guarantees liberty and justice for all. They are a part of a country in which anyone can become president and so forth. But on the other hand, they are also assured by this country and its white citizens that they have never contributed to anything to civilization, that their past is nothing more than a record of humiliations gladly endured. They are assumed by the Republic that they, their father, mother, their ancestors were happy. and that, that the value they have as a black person is proven by only one thing: their devotion to white people. Baldwin continues, all this enters the child's consciousness much sooner than we adults would like to think it does. As adults, we are easily fooled because we are so anxious to be fooled. But children are very different. Children, not yet aware that it is dangerous to look too deeply at anything, look at everything. Look at each other and draw their own conclusions. They don't have the vocabulary to express what they see, and we, their elders, know how to intimidate them very easy and very soon. But a black child, he writes, looks at the world around them, though they cannot know quite what to make of it, is aware that there is a reason why their mother works so hard, why their father is always on edge. They're aware that there is some reason why, if they sit down in the front of the bus, their father or mother slaps them and drags them to the back of the bus. They're aware that there is something terrible, some terrible weight on their parents' shoulders which menaces them. And it isn't long, in fact, begins when they are in school before they discover the shape of their oppression. Baldwin goes on to describe what it's like to grow up in New York City and to experience the difference between the neighborhood where he was raised and Park Avenue and other areas of the city where he experienced white affluence. He describes the internal rage of every black person who works in these neighborhoods and is only allowed to enter and exit by the back door. Culminating in this observation, every street boy, and I was a street boy, he writes, so I know, looking at the society which has produced him, looking at the standards of the society which are not honored by anybody, looking at your churches and the government and the politicians, understands this structure is operated for someone else's benefit, not for mine. I thought about Baldwin's words when I began reading the 1619 Project and the author's own awakening. The author, Nicole Hannah Jones, writes, black people, however, were largely absent from the histories I read. The vision of the past I absorbed from school textbooks, television, and the local history museum depicted a world, perhaps a wishful one, where black people did not really exist. This history rendered black Americans, black people on all the earth, inconsequential at best, invisible at worst. We appeared only where unavoidable. Slavery was mentioned briefly in the chapter on the nation's most deadly war, and then black people disappeared again for a full century until magically reappearing as Martin Luther King Jr., who gave a speech about a dream. This quantum leap served to wrap the black experience up in a few paragraphs and in a tidy bow, says Jones. Never really explaining why, 100 years after the abolition of slavery, King had to lead a march on Washington in the first place. We're not actors, she writes, but acted upon. We were not contributors, just recipients. White people enslaved us and white people freed us. Black people could choose either to take advantage of that freedom or to squander it, as our depictions in the media seem to suggest so many of us were doing. The world revealed to me through my education was a white one. And yet my intimate world, my neighborhood, the friends that rode the bus with, that I rode the bus with for 2 hours each day, and from the schools on the white side of town, the boisterous bevy of aunts and uncles and cousins who crowded our home for barbecues and card games was largely black. At school, I searched desperately to find myself in the American story. We were taught to see my humanity, our humanity, reflected back to me. I snatched Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry from the elementary school library shelf because it was the one book with a black girl on the cover. In high school, when my advanced placement English teacher assigned us a final project on American literary figure, I wrote about the only black poet I had been exposed to, Langston Hughes. See, in both the case of Baldwin and Jones, the clarion cry is for a reflection of and a recognition of the experience that they have had in this country and the legacy that they have been born out of. It's a cry for our societal systems which mold young minds to offer material for contemplation and inspiration which reflect the beauty, brilliance, potential of people that look like them and who share a common history. That providing these resources would also challenge the dominant narrative of American exceptionalism and the cultural mores that reflect the supremacy of whiteness is and ought to be the byproduct of such an awakening. But that's what scares many people. That when you fully come to a realization of who you are and what you are born of and what you are capable of and the agency that you ought to be respected for, things will no longer be the same. And the manufactured debate in this country over the teaching of things like critical race theory is just that. It's a manufactured debate. The latest attempt in a larger political strategy to rev up the most radical elements of the political and religious right in this country in service to a myth that schools are teaching students to be ashamed and sad about being white. So let me ask you, when we did the exercise for the reading today, what did you feel? Sad? Sad about being white? Sad about a history? Okay, what else? What else did you feel? What else did you feel? Paul? Anger. Shame. Shame about what? Right. Not shame about being white, but shame about the fact that this is a part of the American experience that we do not commonly and critically claim for ourselves. And therein lies the distinction. If by analyzing the history and discovering that we have built our common mores on the shifting sands of racial superiority is to instill a sense of sadness, guilt, and shame, then we have completely forgotten about being white. Then we have completely forgotten the purpose of education, which is to inspire resilience, to further the aims of our founding ideals, and to challenge those systems which would restrict the very rights we hold as sacred from more than half the human population, probably more like 4/5 of the human population. We are in a moment again when we must not apologize for awakening to injustice and inequality. We must teach our children well. We must recognize that the resistance to this is the very sign that what is happening is in service to the very liberty which others fear is threatened by the analysis. A history that is long and varied. So I want to close with another quote from James Baldwin. It's not really a black revolution that is upsetting the country, he says. What's upsetting the country is a sense of its own identity. If, for example, one managed to change the curriculum in all the schools so that black people learned more about themselves and their real contributions to this culture, you would be liberating not only black people, you would be liberating white people who know nothing about their own history. And the reason is that if you are compelled to lie about one aspect of anybody's history, you must lie about it all. If you have to lie about my real role here, if you have to pretend that I hoed all this cotton just because I loved you, then you have done something to yourself. You are mad. Amen. And blessed be. Would you please join together in our closing hymn, number 110, found in your gray hymnals?
New glory dawns upon the earth. With warring banners must be furled. The earth become our common home. From plain and field and tower there sound the stirring rumors of the day. Old wrongs and burdens must make way for all to tread the common ground. Divided we have long withstood the love that is our common speech, the comrade cry of each to each is calling us to humanhood. Our closing words are those of my colleague and friend Johnny Lou Johnstone. We shall overcome, she says. When we can truly celebrate the diversity of contributions and talents offered by all people, we shall overcome hatred and prejudice and oppression. When we can truly extend our hands to one another in loving acceptance, we shall overcome the past that haunts us now. Living in peace and freedom, we shall overcome the wrongs that have happened and the debts left unpaid. Let us join together in that commitment to overcome, and let us say together, Amen, and blessed be. Please be seated.
Once again, beloved, worship in this place has come to an end. But our service continues next with an opportunity for refreshment and conversation. May yours be a wondrous and wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.